Dialectic, a generative AI for ethical assessments with a case study on the philosophy of Paul W. Taylor. I am Gerald Dana Cole. Dialectic is a generative artificial intelligence system that supports a query-response dialogue between two interlocutors. It is in the genre of software called assistments. Assistments are programs that facilitate learning and discovery. There's an important distinction to be made. Assessments, like course grades, are summative in nature. They provide a number or a letter indicative of a student's overall performance. They are based on evaluation of a product, known in the parlance of education as an artifact of learning. In essence, they tell you how you did. Assessments, on the other hand, are tools that help students learn. They provide feedback as a type of formative assessment, but the real goal is to tutor, not test. Assessments support constructivist pedagogy, an approach to teaching where students face a challenge and leverage prior knowledge to, in effect, build or construct new understandings. The credo of constructivist educators is process, not product. The blue part of this illustration indicates the process part of learning. The green part at the end depicts the product of learning, sometimes referred to as an artifact of learning. Assessments target the formative learning part, not the summative part, the final judgment, if you will. In the true spirit of the dialectical method, there are two system agents. Socrates is the system component that serves as the proxy for an expert or teacher. Socrates uses a question and answer protocol to facilitate learning. Meno is the system component or proxy, as we in the business say, for the learner or student. Only the English language module is supported in this implementation at this time to minimize overhead. You've probably heard of the Socratic dialogue, a technique attributed to the ancient Athenian philosopher Socrates. It is a critical thinking question and answer style of teaching you see depicted in court dramas all the time. Socrates thought it was a way of teasing out prior understanding, but today we use it as a form of discovery learning, building on knowns to achieve new understandings. Dialectic, the program, is a generative AI foundation model. Unlike ChatGPT and other AIs you might have heard of, it is built on Meta's free and open source system called LLaMa. LLaMa is used to implement DIY large language models. One advantage to using virginal, tabula rasa systems like LLaMa is that they are not trained on all the garbage out there on the internet. The implementer has full control over what content gets imported into the system, like parental controls on your TV or old VCR. The system knows only the source documents we feed it, a process called ingestion. For this demonstration, we will be uploading the corpus of writings of a subject matter expert, or SME, on environmental ethics. The student, in the guise of Meno, will engage in discussions with Socrates, the teacher, who has acquired knowledge on everything we have taught it on the SME. Several texts were ingested into Dialectic's tabula rasa. The logic module was trained using a popular free open-source book entitled A Concise Introduction to Logic by Patrick Hurley. While concise, the book is actually quite comprehensive, covering sentential logic, predicates, quantifiers, and modalities. On training, the system was able to solve randomly chosen problem sets in the book. For training on the Socratic method, what better than to go to the source? The text of Menexenus by Plato himself, who chronicled everything his teacher Socrates had to say, is the original account of the dialogue between the old master and Meno himself, and Meno's slave for that matter. Finally, for precision in training and exemplars for the model, the Wikipedia article on Socratic dialogue served as a general source. We need a SME, or subject master expert. As the case study for our expert system, the corpus of Paul W. Taylor's writings were ingested. The logic and rhetorical models in Dialectic were able to build a virtual Paul W. Taylor knowledge base that Socrates could tap in its interactions with Meno. Meno can be instantiated to a real student engaged with the system or serve in the role of an autonomous user agent. Taylor himself was a noted philosopher in the discipline of environmental ethics and wrote the seminal book, Respect for Nature: A Theory of Environmental Ethics, in 1996. His book promulgated the biocentric viewpoint on environmental ethics and serves, whether you agree with his tenets or not, as a kick-the-tires proxy for framing yay or nay inquiries related to the subject. PWT stated 4 premises as the basis for his ethical framework. 1. That humans are members of the Earth's community of life on the same terms as other living things. 2. That all species are part of a system of interdependence. 3. That all organisms are teleological centers of life. And 4. That humans are not inherently superior to other living beings. Using Paul W. Taylor as a case study, the system was prompted to cast the narrative of his premises into predicate functions with rhetorical terms. H of X, for example, stands for X is a human, and L of X translates as X is a living organism. Taylor's 4 premises were then recast in formal predicate logic with quantifiers. For example, premise 2 translates as for all X that are living X. The implication is there exists another Y such that Y is living and X and Y are interdependent. Here are premises 3 and 4 encoded, with a final summary of all 4 formalized premises used for arguments and interlocution. Now for a demonstration. The system was queried with the question, is it ethical for Paul W. Taylor to eat chicken? The assumption was that the system would generate a deductive proof, but to our surprise, it did a proof by contradiction, recasting the original question as, can Paul Taylor eat chicken? It started with the predicates and definitions and assumptions from Taylor's rhetoric. For the technically inclined, the rhetorical model uses transformers, a sort of fill-in-the-blank predictive approach to intelligence. For example, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy blank is completed, stochastically, with the word dog. Here are steps 1 through 5 of the logical frameworks constructed by Dialectic. The system is able to generate a contradiction by conjunction with narrative translation into user-friendly vernacular, to wit, ethical contradiction with Taylor's principles. From the premises, we derive the conclusion by the method of contradiction, to wit, thus, eat Paul W. Taylor chicken now. The piece de la resistance, a final narrative rendition of the conclusion. No, it is not ethical for Paul W. Taylor to eat chicken. For the second part of the demonstration, we asked Dialectic to create a Socratic dialogue in natural language using Taylor's 4 premises, guiding Meno in auto-generation mode to resolutions of the question. Is it moral for non-human animals to eat each other? Here is the text of the auto-generated text on the question, auto-numbered for reference. Socrates is the guiding mentor and Meno the answering student. We continue with lines 11 through 22. The interlocution continues from lines 23 to 31, where we arrive at the resolution. Ta-da! The conclusion, highlighted. In summary, it is moral for non-human animals to eat each other. Note: this dialogue was created in auto-generate mode, but the system can also interlocute in real time with the user instantiated as Meno through system-generated prompts. Socrates will respond with appropriate guiding questions. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call active learning. With ingestion and training on the Playwriting for Dummies book, Kindle edition, Dialectic can, as a bonus, generate a Socratic play version of the Dialectic. It comes up with an appropriate title, In the Company of Life, cast of characters with personas, and scene-by-scene scripts. This is a terrific example of an engaging computer-generated mechanic that students can use to creatively act out a Socratic dialogue to resolve ethical quandaries. In this investigator's experience, there is but one example of a Socratic dialogue experienced in the course of typical K-16 education. Wittgenstein argued one can't do philosophy without a joke. We can do him one better these days with a myriad of plays. Put these applications in your pipe and smoke 'em. 1. Ethical assessments serve as an engaging active learning tool. Creative anachronism is a powerful mechanic via role-playing in playwriter mode. 2. As an ancillary to courses on logic and philosophy, Dialectic gives students practice formalizing arguments and mastering proof methodologies. 3. The systems offers active context switching between logical and narrative presentation modalities based on preferred teaching or learning styles. 4. The Socratic method is the perfect incarnation of scaffold learning championed by Vygotsky, a noted cognitive psychologist. Socrates ministers questions in the learner's zone of proximal development, neither too easy to bore them nor too hard to disincentivize them. Just right in the Goldilocks zone. 5. Dialectic provides computer science and philosophy students with a sandbox for architecting intelligent systems. Knowledge engineering is an emerging field and a crossover opportunity for philosophy students. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the philosophy companies are hiring. 6. Another emerging specialty is query engineering, perfect for philosophy majors. Their first question day one on the job need no longer be to the effect, "Want fries with that?" A generation has been born that will grow up talking to machines. Feel free to reach the PI at any of the virtual coordinates given below.